Good evening. The Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. And unfortunately, the news of the day is the current conflict going on in Israel between, in specifically, Hamas and Israel, or the Israeli government. However, we want to twist and embroider about this. Now, when I say current conflict, that's probably not really accurate, because this seems, at least to me, to be an ongoing, multi-year, multi-decade, multi-generational conflict going back forever. And each one of these little instances that we have since the founding of Israel in the late 40s on up, each one seems to be like a stop-start issue. That, we get in a little bit of conflict, a little bit of violence, and then that kind of stops. People call for peace, and then it's like it pauses. It doesn't stop. I'm not really going to go into too much detail as to the cause of everything, of why this constantly happens, because frankly, I'm going to give you the respect to assume that you do know why this is constantly happening, and go from there. This is not going to be a long one, because I just really want to give out my unqualified, just from the couch point of view of my opinion on what is going on. And it's not just a matter of what's going on in terms of the actual violence, but what is going on in terms of the actual propaganda towards this violence. Some time ago, Hamas launched a rather significant rocket attack into Israel. Caused a lot of damage, hurt and killed a lot of people. Israel goes in to respond to this. Benjamin Netanyahu quoted himself in saying that their attack on Gaza, which where Hamas is hiding in, will change the face of the Middle East. I kind of have a problem with that. And my problem with that flows into the other problems I have with this concerning people's responses towards this. What I see is a lot of tropes in terms of the propaganda campaign from one direction and the other direction, frankly. Israel has a very lethal, very sophisticated, very professional secret service in the Mossad. They are accurate and as deadly as a scalpel when it comes to exercising and executing their operations. They don't need to do invasions. They don't need saturated carpet bombing, missile strikes, airstrikes. They don't need ground forces to take out individuals. They just need to search and destroy. People talk about terms like proportional response, and that's understandable in a war situation, and this has now become a war situation. But from Bibi's quote, this kind of leads me to believe there's far more of an agenda than just, say, defending Israel. And that's the problem. I get the feeling that this attack that happened to Israel, that the response to it was glee from those who wanted a war, that wanted to have an excuse to go and slam themselves into Gaza. Maybe down deep they're thanking Hamas for their barbarism so we could just justify their barbarism back. And it is galling that I have to say this. Like, it should be a no-brainer that I don't have to say this, but I have to say this. Criticism of the Israeli government does not translate to criticism against the Israeli people. It's not criticism against the Jewish faith. Now, the reason why I have to preface this and make this statement is because people are easily go to the point of blurring the line and saying that it's not just the government, but it's just Jews and the Jewish people. We have seen protests of anti-Semitic bullshit towards Jews, not the Israeli government, not Benjamin Netanyahu, not those who have the agenda of, oh boy, now we can go in there and destroy things. No, they're going after the faith. They're going after the people. That's lazy, that's wrong, and that smacks of y'all are having a problem with Jews anyway, so this is just an excuse for you to come out from under your stairs and come out from under your basements, hiding in the dark and being gleeful upon your anti-Semitic bullshit, to trash the faith, to trash the people. Let's flip the coin and say the same thing of people who oppose the Palestinian people. Because Palestinians have for so many years has also been propagandized in the association with them with Hamas or the PLO for years gone by with Yasser Arafat. To the tantamount of anyone wanting to give any sympathy towards the people of the Palestinian people in Gaza, well, that smacks of being anti-Israel. It smacks of being anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, when it's nothing of the kind. When it's being human towards human beings. Treating the Palestinian people is the same as you treat the Israeli people. Not go after them for their faith, not go after the fact that the Palestinians are Muslim and or Christians, because there are Christian members of the Palestinian people. People who come here who are Palestinian are not all Muslims. A family friend of my mother's was Palestinian born, and she was Christian. But that doesn't seem to matter. And the details don't matter in this. This is the vague generalizations, which is all that matters. That's all that's the important thing about this. Hamas takes hostages, as what they do. Israel strikes in Gaza. Gaza is not a large tract of land, but has a large population within that tract of land, which is kind of trapped. A little over 2 million people of Palestinian population in Gaza. Gaza itself, along the coastline of the Mediterranean, is about 140 miles. That's how big around is Gaza. Gaza, it borders Egypt to its south, to the southwest. The west is just the Mediterranean. To the north and east is Israel. Now, I'm pointing out this little geography and population census here because amongst the other things that the Israeli government also demands is that they demand that Gaza be emptied of its civilian population by at least 1 million people, displacing 1 million people. According to the UN, according to one of the groups in the UN, I think it's called the Norwegian Refugee Organization, they look at that demand, and if that demand was enforced, that is tantamount to a war crime. But that is forced relocation, forced displacement of people. I've said this multiple times on the social medias I haunt that no one is wearing a white hat in this conflict. Not the principal parties, and not their satellites, which includes the United States. As I said, if you're going after a terrorist organization that's hiding within the population, you don't punish the population. Don't saturate bomb them. Then you just go in with ground troops and you demand that 1 million people remove themselves from their homes and become refugees. No, you take your highly skilled, highly professional, highly deadly Mossad, infiltrate, go in, and eliminate those responsible for the attacks. That's proportional response. That is defending Israel. Because that's another one of these mantras that I've been hearing over and over again for the past few days on news media is it's people who defend Israel will say, and almost verbatim, they'll start the lines with, well, Israel has a right to defend itself. Yes, Israel has a right to defend itself. But defending yourself requires you to defend yourself and respond to those who assault you, those who attacked you. Not every Palestinian man, woman, and child attacked, but every man, woman, and child Palestinian is now a target by the Israeli government. Again, I have to emphasize not the people, not the faith, because we have to keep emphasizing because evidently the majority of the people who have this glossed over opinion of this are not adults. There was a great meme that I saw that I posted on my social medias, and it was a beautiful picture of the dividing line between Gaza and Israel. And there's two families on either side of this line, and both sides of the line has devastation in it. Those who are on the Gaza line, this Palestinian family holds up a sign that says, "We are not Hamas." The Israelis, on the Israeli side, holds up a sign that says, "We're not Benjamin Netanyahu." That's a perfect distillation of what the problem is. And what should matter here is because both families are innocent bystanders in a cultural, generational war that some will claim will go way past the founding of Israel. Because people who are clawing for justifications in any of these barbarisms is going to harken back to way back when to justify. I mean, let's look back to the separation between Isaac and Abraham, for God's sakes. What annoys me in this is the drumbeat and the propaganda war that's going on. That the majority of the news media has to push their pro-Israel agenda here, pro-Israel government, to make sure that, they're reporting to make sure that you can condone and nod your head upon how they're defending themselves when they do things that go above and beyond defending them. Terrorism shouldn't be condoned. Terrorism should be struck at. I agree. Hamas, if Hamas makes the attacks, then you respond against Hamas. I've seen people come on, who come on with their opinions concerning the Palestinian people that, the Muslim world will rise up and defend them. When? When had they ever done that beyond lip service? I mean, defending them how? By supporting them how? By, having Hamas there? Having Hezbollah and Lebanon get involved? Is that it? I'm not seeing the mobilization of armies from Iraq to Syria to Iran or Saudi Arabia. Not above board, call to arms to defend the Palestinian people. Unfortunately, from this vantage point of somebody who does not have experience but does watch over the years, is that the Palestinian people are great props for these far-flung countries, which are not really far-flung when you actually look at the geography of the Middle East, but they are great talking points when they want to, tag Israel or tag the United States. But when push comes to shove, these people are not going to come up and truly defend the Palestinians. Those will send money to Hamas, but Hamas is not Palestinians. They're an organization within Palestine that is hiding behind the people. People I see on social media is demanding, why don't the Palestinians just uproot them and then cast them out or this or that? What? This is not a clean-cut thing here. There's a lot of twists and turns. What goes on not only with the Palestinian people, but the Israeli people and their government. The regular Israelis, regular Palestinians, they suffer at the behest of their individual governments or their organizations that are too strong for them to push back against. Some guy does kind of a little minor argument on Twitter about this, or X. Fuck X, it's Twitter, whatever. God's sakes. And says, why don't they just throw them out? Really? How? When? And it's if you have 500 of these people, then it should be okay to lambast a city. If it was your city, you would understand. Really? Really? If there were 500 people with evil intent in their hearts, are you volunteering to offer up your city for destruction? 2 million people in Gaza. What's the fraction of them that are actually members of Hamas, or more so, are actively responsible for the rocket attack in Israel? That's a fraction of a fraction. But the response is going to rain fire down on everyone just to get those two. You're destroying a house and all the people inside it just to eliminate a couple of rats in a basement. There's an old Vietnam era saying that when the Americans go in to fight the Viet Cong and they go through a village, well, we had to destroy the village to save it. I have an opinion in terms of parallels concerning this Israeli-Gaza conflict and, say, the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And I am purposely saying that in that order. But I'm not going to get into that. Not in this one. This is, again, a relatively short one, even though I'm going 20 minutes already. But the Israeli government is ready to commit to ground troops into Gaza after they're done, blowing holes through it. The United States is assisting with 2 carrier groups in the Mediterranean to assist in the destruction of Gaza, pretty much. Again, blowing up the house to get at a few rats and everybody inside it. The United States, we have this really bad habit of how we handle our allies. Another parallel between this and the Russia-Ukrainian conflict, which harkens back to our siding with various people of questionable motivations, backgrounds, the lessers of two evils. That's one of the great taglines of our vaunted Cold War era in our Cold War policies. We have backed a lot of people that you would consider to be bad guys. And we have assisted in activities that would be considered evil, just because we wanted to have another piece on the chessboard against our counterpart in the chess game, Russia. We backed Saddam Hussein in the Iran-Iraq war. Why? Because Iran is an ally of Russia and gets support from Russia. Translations of that and our history of that goes even further back when we assisted the Brits in the coup in Iran that installed the Shah of Iran. Again, same motivation. How many other people, how many organizations have we backed who were unsavory, who did unsavory things while we were supporting them because of our own motivations? Thankfully, even though the Biden administration is, staunchly pro-Israel, which makes sense. I mean, we're going to be. We have propped up Israel since its inception, and as powerful as it is, we are the big brother that keeps it powerful. But somehow, we who are the giant, the perceptions of us is that we are subservient to their government. We have to assist them. And I wonder if that is, politically motivated in terms of, protecting an ally, or if it is motivated because of our strange, twisted need to infuse religion in our politics. Where, we can't step away and not support and not be gung-ho for any activities that Israel does, because that might, affect our political chances back in the States concerning the Jewish lobby, which is a political power and money in their lobbyists towards our politicians. Is right or wrong here, man? And if you can't move with conscience, because that might affect your political future, if you piss some people off, then why don't you just get a logo slapped onto your coat every time you go into Congress or Senate or the White House, saying that you are, partially a sponsored, trademarked person towards a lobby. It is weird. It's kind of a side tangent, but there's a weird thing where a lobbying organization has so much power over a political party or two political parties, if you want to be honest about it, that, the right or wrong of a situation gets so muddy, gets so gray that you can't definitively say what is right, what is wrong, because of the consequences that might happen to you politically. Oh, they might condemn you. They might pull their money and support from you. They might take it to the other side. The cure for that is that if both sides don't take that money. If you take that money off the table completely, both sides, Democrats, Republicans, if the influence behind it is negatively affecting your own conscience to be that supportive because of you needing that donor money, then what happens if both sides removes that from the equation? Does both sides lose elections? Because no one's going to be brave about going about and doing that. But this is the thing, that we are in this metaphysical quagmire with the people who are going to be suffering the most, the Israelis and the Palestinians. They're the ones going to be suffering. None of us over here, back on our couch, thousands of miles away, we're not going to suffer a damn thing. At least those of us who are rattling off our opinions about this. But they are. But the propaganda that I'm seeing on social media, that's on streaming like YouTube, every other video I have is that I'm watching has an ad for what's going on in the Israeli-Gaza conflict. And 9 times out of 10, pro-Israel. They want us to be conditioned to nod our heads so that if something kind of happens, we're going to go and we're going to say the mantra, oh, well, Israel has a right to defend itself, so let it erase Gaza from the map. A tyrant always finds a pretext for its tyranny. I said that during the conflict with Russia and Ukraine, that Putin wasn't going to move until there was a pretext. The reason why he would move is his army in, and the pretext, of course, was the 2 puppet states that welcomed him in with his support, or the massacre that was done by the Azul Brigade 8 years ago, that so disrupted and disturbed Putin and nearly affected his T servers for 8 years, while he was too busy chomping up Crimea. But that's a side tangent, which I said I wasn't going to do, but side tangent. We need to divorce ourselves from this religious connection into our politics. We have to think about everybody who suffers, not just one side or the other side. I'm glad to hear at least the inklings of the Biden administration is going to also send aid to the Palestinian people. That's great. I know there's going to be a lot of pushback towards that. And that's too bad that there's pushback, but that is the right thing to do. People are knee-jerked easy to demonize these people. Almost as bad as a knee-jerk to demonize the Israelis as the people, as the faith, as a Jewish faith, because of the actions of their government. Because people are either lazy or just innately hateful towards the Jews, which I never understood why. And that's chalked up for me having no experience of any of this going on, that I don't have to deal with that experience. But still, when I hear about it, and I hear stray thoughts about it, when I hear people talk about it, I don't understand why. There was a Will Ferrell did the Thank You America, the little spoof of him being George W. Bush, and it was actually a great show. You found it on HBO. It was a great show, where he kind of cataloged how George Bush went through his becoming the president and way to deal with the 9/11 and the war on terror, etc., etc. And he was talking about his cabinet. The cabinet that George Bush had, and there's one guy, and he says he had funny stories about Jews. And I'm sitting here like, what does that matter? Why? How's that funny? I never got it. And I still kind of never got it. I never got how there was an issue with the Jewish people. I never understood the conspiracy theories, how certain words translated to slurs against Jews, like globalism. I never got that. It is from, it's from a position of comfort, admittedly, and inexperience, admittedly, but I don't get it. But as I said, people who want to lambaste the Palestinians connect them so closely to Hamas, and so they shouldn't be supported. They shouldn't be worried about. If the Israeli government had their way and they displaced 1 million people from Gaza, they have nowhere to go. Where were they going to go? Someone told me that there's going to be the U.S. government is trying to get cruise ships to pick up Palestinian refugees. Great, but where are they going to go? I mean, we heard how people clutched their pearls over the concept of Syrian refugees coming into the United States, similar to Ukrainian refugees coming to the United States. And let's not forget the invasion that we have. Invasion that we have every year at our border, like every other day. So our policy, or our assisting policy with Israel, if we're going to assist them in mass deportation of 1 million people, and what, they're going to just sit out in sea on cruise ships? They're going on a cruise, yay! Fuck you. Yeah, poor them, they're going on a cruise ship. Yeah, they've been robbed of their homes. Taken away from their homes. They have nowhere. They have nowhere to go. And you're going to bust their balls for being on a cruise ship that they didn't want to be on in the first place. People who don't have time to have the nuanced conversation between these two groups, the plus and minuses between these two groups, or having sympathy or empathy for both groups, is either all one side or all the other, which, it seems to be the stock in trade these days. You can agree with the state of Israel existing and still have sympathy for the Palestinian people. It can happen. It's not an insult for one or the other to be agreeable to both concepts. Because if it is, it's all or nothing, then we need to back off and just say, what? If you two want to have the fucking fight, then go have the fucking fight. And sometimes the cynical nature in me, I get to that point. I get to that point where we should just let them fight it out. And not just because the stop-start, these little conflicts where there's a hot spark of some violence going one way or the other. There's a response which may be a little bit over the top than what it was beforehand, and then everyone comes, okay, let's have some peace, come on, shake hands, sign a paper, blah blah blah, and then wait within 20 years for the next conflict to come by between people who, from outsiders' views, believes that these people cannot coexist. They're not allowing themselves to coexist. And I'm not talking about the people themselves. The people themselves probably could live just fine on their own devices, but the government forces, or the forces that collide against the government forces, they don't want them to have peace. Neither side. I've been saying this recently. This is like the gleefulness in Benjamin Netanyahu's statement of it changing the face of the Middle East. He wants to have the war. He is down deep. He was like, thank God that they attacked us in this manner, in that way. Now we get to start up our own agenda and go after these people. These people, not Hamas. These people. Again, have to emphasize this has nothing to do with the Israeli people. It has nothing to do with the Jewish religion. The same thing is with the Palestinians. It has nothing to do with the Palestinian people. It has nothing to do with their belief in Islam or their belief in Christianity. But there are old men on both sides that demands that they have the fight. But they're not going to fight themselves. They're going to browbeat their young men and women, their children and their grandchildren, to fight, to get their allies to fight for them, to push the propaganda through their influences, through news media, social medias, to keep browbeating you into thinking one way or the other, to keep you pissed off one way or the other. Because I can tell you, from incidents that we have seen in the past few days, these violence, this conflict, this strife is not relegated, is not locked into one tiny piece of the world. When, after the attack from Hamas to Israel, and Israel started its response, all the way to Sydney, Australia, they were protesting rather loudly and dramatically, not against the Israeli government, but against the Jews and the Jewish faith. Rather loudly. There are people throughout the world who are of Jewish faith or in the faith of Islam, who are not in this little part of the world, but they are picking at each other. They are causing conflict with each other. A Muslim girl from in college confronted a Jewish student with the flag of Israel because of her voicing her opinion on the situation, which is obviously pro-Israeli, and this Muslim student went after her about it. It's on the social media. It was recorded and so forth. That Muslim student that attacked her verbally is no longer a student at that school. An old fucker, an old man, killed a six-year-old child because that child was Muslim and considered that child a future terrorist. In New York City, two women was recorded pulling off pictures of people who were held hostage by Hamas. Just taking them away. They're teachers. They deleted all their social media so they wouldn't dare hear any like responses to their activities, right? Well, too late. I mean, unfortunately for people who do bad things in front of a camera, the internet finds you. It always does. From last night through today to tonight, we've heard about the strike, be it an attack, be it an accidental whatever, of the Baptist hospital in northern Gaza that killed at a minimum 300 to 500 people. People are disputing who did this, be it an Israeli strike into Gaza, be it was a misfire of a missile by Hamas. People are not wanting to claim responsibility for it, but somebody, I believe in the Israeli government, actually tweeted when the attack occurred that they just struck a hospital that was being used as a base for Hamas. That Hamas fighters died in it. And then when the pushback came, or the news developed upon this attack on that hospital, that tweet disappeared. There were questions upon there being a Hamas arsenal of weapons that was across the street, and that was the target. Okay. But then the flip of that script was no. It was Hamas itself. It misfired a missile. They tend to do that. This is one of those issues that is a Pandora's box. There is no clean-cut response. There is no clean-cut answer to this. We can force a peace treaty. Sure, that has been done multiple times. We'll compel a peace. We'll browbeat them into a peace. Both sides will agree on it and have concessions and whatever, and then we'll have the peace, and we'll all feel good for the next 20 years, within the 20 years, until another incident happens again, and we're going to be right back at this, only it will be worse, because if you can tell, these things get systematically worse. Because people want to have the war. People in power want to have the war. And in a way, you can almost understand it from each point of view. I once saw a route in Jerusalem as how a Palestinian person who would be living in Jerusalem would have to go from work to come home in a relatively short distance. That from all the checkpoints this person would have to go through would take this person 4 hours to get home. Whereas the straight line towards his work and home would be significantly less. That is a nightmare. Now, am I saying that nightmare is not justified? There is violence. There is violence in the Holy Land. So you can find the justification in it, but I don't know if that is the answer. One thing that bothers me, especially in this term of propaganda, is when any attack happens, either it's reported of it being an actual attack that everybody sees, or it's a reported attack that we later find out about after, verification. And one side or the other side, because both sides are doing this, have to emphasize the killing of babies. They're killing children. We find 40 burnt babies who were beheaded. That was one of the big stories. And that's to get you right here, man. That's to be the tearjerker. That's the emotional manipulation right there. Is it true? given the hatred and violence, probably. That could be probably true. However, when you hear so much upon when any attack happens anywhere that the death toll of children is overemphasized over the actual death count of what's going on, that smacks in my cynical mind as propaganda. They want you not only to get the facts on the ground of what is going on, they want you to be emotionally invested, to be properly outraged, so when the response happens, you'll go, well, yeah, right. Hell yeah, do it. Do it. They're baby killers. Do it. Get them. Yeah. And then they say that the other people are killing babies, because then you just have to blink and go, well, are they? Well, maybe it doesn't matter because you killed babies first. So, you know what? Let's have a meme of, like, just one side or both sides just lobbing babies across the border. May as well. The fact of the matter is, as I'm trying to land this plane here, the people are suffering. Israeli people, Palestinian people, being forced to hate each other over their governments and the influence of terrorist organizations that are behind the scenes, or not so behind the scenes. Hamas promises to release women and children and foreigners if they stop the air bombing by the Israelis. One of their officials was talking to Richard Engel about this, and Richard Engel had to give him pushback on it. He says, why don't you just release them now? Release them all now. Well, that's not impossible because they're still bombing. Oh, as a show of good faith, release them now. Well, some of the places that they're bombing is actually where their hostages are. And it goes back and forth in this. I mean, you're lucky to get these people to be talking to you at all, regardless of, what they're going to say that you can later analyze and, find the truth or the fact or the fiction of it. That's one thing, and that's another thing entirely. But you're not an agent of the government. You're not trying to browbeat, just for somebody else's, intentions here. We have American hostages and other foreign hostages of different countries outside of Israel being involved in this. I don't know how this is going to end up here. I don't think there is an end. And that's the sad part, is because I don't think there is an end. Even if you have a peace treaty and everything calms down, that is just hitting pause. There was a quote from a kind of a bad movie called First Night, where Sean Connery's King Arthur said, "There is a peace that is only found on the other side of war." Could that be true in this instance? If you let them have the fucking fight, would that be true that in the end, everyone gets tired of it? Everyone gets tired of this fighting, of this conflict that is centuries and millennia old, if you really want to justify it going that far back on the basic culture, basic religious split. There was something... never mind, because I'm not all that knowledgeable upon the subject, which is actually, I'm going to have to talk to somebody who is knowledgeable on the subject in terms of like the religious ramifications of what happens, because there used to be a thing that I had heard, which I can't verify of things because I'm not knowledgeable on the situation, but in what is considered the end times. Like, if the temple in Jerusalem is found whole, that is the sign of the rapture. When there's peace in Israel, there's peace in Jerusalem at long last, that's the end times. And there are people, not only the Jewish faith, but in the evangelical Christian faith, who kind of look forward to that. Because that will be the times when they ascend and all us poor sinners get to go where we're going to go. Is that... That's what I heard, and I hope to God that's not, that's a completely elaborate and inaccurate statement of understanding of this. But it kind of makes sense with people's motivations of how they want to continue this conflict so badly. What I would want to do is I would want to sit on a panel, sit and get involved with like another live stream with people who are a little bit more knowledgeable than me, and just be able to ask questions and try to understand from like not only the biased point of views or maybe objective point of views, historical, factual, of what's going on, and and ask why couldn't Jewish people settle in Palestine? Why did there have to be a Jewish-centric state? And why did that Jewish-centric state not treat the people that was already living there as citizens of that state as equal as those that had come after World War II? And all that jazz. But that is a pipe dream. And that'll have to be something that we'll have to put together with other people. In any event, as my dog needs to go out, I am finally going to depart from this subtopic, which I probably should have stopped talking about 30 minutes ago. The Ranter rants because the urge to rant is always rising. And maybe we'll do something happy next time. Maybe we will do something uplifting and positive, like talk about Trump's problems with the law and in his various court hearings, or Jim Jordan who wanted so bad to be speaker tonight, but didn't get that vote he wanted. And the Republicans who voted against him are being called snowflakes by Hannity, who he himself was trying to browbeat into voting for Jordan on his own time, because evidently someone who's a news broadcaster needs to make news instead of just reporting it. It's a rant. That's what happens.